Hi, I'm Anna Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv. This is week 148 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and our last episode of 2024. It's impossible to say that 2024 was kind to Ukraine. The battlefield situation has worsened significantly amid manpower and ammunition shortages, and foreign aid has often arrived in increments that were too little, too late. With Western war fatigue at an all-time high and the future of aid to Ukraine in question, the situation looks grim. In today's video, instead of looking back on the week, we're going to break down the key events of 2024 for Ukraine, focusing on what happened on the battlefield, in high cabinets, and on the streets. This year has seen a grinding advance by Russia in the east. February was defined by the Russian advance and ultimate capture of Avdiivka in Donetsk Oblast, in which Ukrainian troops were ordered to withdraw by then newly appointed Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky in his first major decision in the role. Russia has continued to capture towns throughout Donetsk Oblast while suffering huge casualties with seeming indifference. The UK recently estimated that Russia will surpass 1 million casualties within the next 6 months. It was a harrowing moment when Russia launched a new offensive in northeastern Kharkiv Oblast in early May. The offensive, however, stalled within weeks and was limited to an area just a few kilometers inside the border. Still, it was a jarring reminder that Russia can theoretically invade any bordering region at any time. The Kharkiv offensive was also used as an example of Ukrainian forced inaction due to Western restrictions on long-range weapons, as it was argued that the offensive could have been prevented if Ukraine had been allowed to proactively strike at Russian troops before they crossed the border. On the flip side, it was far more surprising when Ukraine launched an offensive into Russia's Kursk Oblast in August, at its peak gaining control of more than 1,000 square kilometers. The Kursk incursion is historic in that it marks the first occupation of Russian soil by a foreign power since the Second World War, and greatly humiliated Moscow for its failure to prevent or quickly extinguish it. But overall, the operation has come at a heavy cost for questionable gains. This autumn saw another shocking twist that few predicted for 2024: the deployment of North Korean troops to fight alongside Russia. An estimated 12,000 North Koreans were sent to Russia and were spotted sporadically throughout the autumn before appearing in ground assaults in Kursk Oblast this month. Needless to say, North Korean troops engaging in combat on European soil is an escalation of epic proportions, and the world hasn't quite known how to react. The North Korean troops are reportedly inexperienced and taking heavy losses, meaning that they're being used to shield the Russian army more than level it up. Still, as badly as it bodes for Russia that they're at the point of using their allies as cannon fodder, the fact remains that the Russian war machine and its incoming stream of conscripts isn't in danger of slowing down anytime soon. Although the lifting of restrictions on Ukraine's use of Western-supplied weapons was one of the most hotly debated issues of the year, it ended on a surprisingly positive note. As of November, Ukraine has been allowed to use Western-supplied ATACMS, Storm Shadows, and other longer-range weapons to strike Russian territory, in a move initiated by the outgoing Biden administration and mimicked by other major allies. This unified decision was an act of decisiveness in a year of great uncertainty surrounding aid to and support for Ukraine. The first few months of this year were marked by a palpable tension as US Congress stalled the passing of a supplementary aid package for Ukraine. As the bill hung in limbo and the aid stalled, Russia began pushing hard in Ukraine's east in the offensive that they have maintained throughout the year. Avdiivka fell on February 17th, and it would take 2 more months of bickering in Congress before the $61 billion aid package was finally approved. As of the end of 2024, the full contents of the promised aid package have not been delivered to Ukraine and are not expected to be before US President Joe Biden leaves office next month. The domestic debate about aid to Ukraine was a central issue in the 2024 US election. Watching the election cycle unfold from Ukraine was very much a roller coaster. In the first 6 months of the year, there was anxiety that a second Biden term would at best result in more drip-feeding of aid that would allow Ukrainian survival, but not victory. As Biden visibly declined on live television, pretty much everyone here echoed America's confusion about how the election could possibly move forward. After Biden stepped down and Vice President Kamala Harris announced her campaign, there was again concern that the Democratic Party's stance on Ukraine was too moderate and didn't support full Ukrainian victory. In the end, that didn't end up mattering. Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump won the election in a swift and uncontested result. Trump has vowed to end Russia's war against Ukraine immediately upon taking office, which has made many afraid that a bad peace deal for Ukraine, perhaps orchestrated to accommodate the wishes of Vladimir Putin, could be on Trump's agenda. The question has been asked, what would happen if Trump cuts off aid to Ukraine entirely or otherwise abandons it? Estimates say that in such a situation, Europe could likely keep Ukraine fighting until mid-2025. After which, less is certain. Still, little is known about Trump's actual plans or position regarding Ukraine. President Zelensky was among the first to publicly congratulate Trump after the results of the election were announced, and there's been some hope among Ukrainians that Trump's decisiveness, in contrast to Biden's inaction, could actually help Ukraine. Another issue that defined Ukraine in 2024 was mobilization. After making the difficult decision to lower the minimum age for mobilization from 27 to 25 years old, Ukraine still failed to meet the minimum personnel needs of the army. Mobilization saw an uptick in late spring when a bill introducing a new round of it was passed, and men were given new instructions for registering their information with the military. All Ukrainian men aged 18 to 60 had to visit their local enlistment office and update their information, and register in a new app, making it easier for them to be contacted with summons and increasing the likelihood of being caught for evading them. At this time, there was also an increase in random stops on the street, where men's documents could be checked by military officials, and they could be ordered to report for a health checkup, the first step of the enlistment process. For men who join the military voluntarily, there's this ability to sign directly with a unit of one's choice if an agreement is made with them beforehand. For those who are involuntarily mobilized, there is no choice, greatly increasing the odds of being sent to an unfavorable position. In this way, the introduction of new mobilization protocols motivated some men to proactively make preparations and enlist voluntarily, rather than leaving everything to chance. Others, on the contrary, were leaving their places of residence less, withdrawing from society, fearing indiscriminate mobilization. Certain allies of Ukraine, the United States in particular, have suggested that Ukraine lower its age of mobilization from 25 to 18, something that Ukraine has stated that it absolutely does not want to do. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and State Secretary Antony Blinken are among those who have insisted that the decision is harsh but necessary. However, Kyiv's refusal is based on necessity as well as morals. Young men are one of the smallest and most vulnerable demographics in Ukraine due to low birth rates in the 1990s and early 2000s following the collapse of the Soviet Union, and pulling from this part of the population threatens to destabilize Ukraine's economic future. With so many leaving the country both before and especially after the full-scale invasion, and birth rates among the worst in Europe, Ukraine literally cannot afford to sacrifice both its young men and its future generations along with them. Mobilization has been a flawed process in Ukraine throughout the invasion. This year has seen a lot of men go to war for the first time in their lives, and many more are currently preparing to. Ukraine is going into 2025 with a far more weathered and perhaps cynical outlook, and a huge awareness of just how much is at stake in continuing to fight, and how much is at stake in laying down arms. As I said before, 2024 was objectively not an easy one for anyone in Ukraine. Ukrainians have heard thousands of air alarms since January 1st. Civilian deaths have continued to mounts of thousands, and no part of the country is safe from Russian drones and missiles. Attacks to the power grid have left many without electricity throughout the year, with blackouts depriving people of the ability to cook, do laundry, or access the internet for days on end. At the same time, there have been bright spots. A Ukrainian film won an Oscar for the first time in history. A Ukrainian high jumper broke the world record and is still holding it. F-16s are finally on the ground, or in the air, in Ukraine. Ukraine has survived a third year of brutal full-scale invasion and has held the line against Russian aggression. Although 2025 remains a great unknown, what is known is that Ukraine will meet whatever challenge it presents. If you've been part of the Kyiv independence journey in 2024, thank you. We are funded by our readers, and your support is what allows us to bring you on-the-ground news about Russia's brutal invasion, which we're committed to doing no matter how much uncertainty the world faces in 2025 and beyond. If you'd like to join our community, please visit the link in the description below. I'd also like to say thank you to the people who have donated directly in the comments below these episodes. Your support is also hugely appreciated. Happy New Year. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine.